It is late summer in the garden, my friends. That means some of the tomatoes are splitting, the garden is pumping out the last of its produce. Or is it? There's still a lot more you can do in September, no matter where you live. So we're bringing back some fan favorites, Dagny and Meg, and introducing a couple new friends of Epic, Katie in Zone 3 and Danielle in Texas for you Southern gardeners, and Jacques too. So in this video, we're gonna give you some of our absolute best tips for what you can plant in September, no matter where you live. So cultivate that like button and let's get growing. I'm gonna kick it off for us with a little bit of a curveball because while this is a vegetable, it is a perennial vegetable, meaning it will come back season after season and deliver to you beautiful green globes of luscious glory that you can make a dip out of. You can do all sorts of different wonderful things that of course would be the artichoke. This is my artichoke patch. I'm very proud of it. I'm very happy with it. It's done fantastically for me in the 2 years that I've had it. Variety-wise, you might go with the green globe. I would suggest you go with a green globe improved. This is from our seed company, Botanical Interests. The original variety is from 1863. So there's a lot of different interesting benefits that the improved version gives. Less spines, more production, etc. But what you need to know about artichoke is put it in the ground in fall if you're in a warm climate like mine. You'll want to start the seeds indoors, transplant them outside when the soil is about 60 degrees Fahrenheit or so. So before your first frost, if you have that, and then they will establish over the winter and they'll come back actually looking pretty much exactly like this in the spring in the first year. And then they'll throw up a big old spike and put out that beautiful flower. Believe it or not, you actually eat an unopened artichoke flower. That's what the artichoke actually is. So to me, every garden, no matter the zone, needs an artichoke.
Everybody loves eating lettuce and salad during the summertime, but it could actually be quite tricky to grow during the summer. That's because it gets too hot, the lettuce starts to taste really bitter, and will even bolt, making it useless. Now I have 3 varieties here, 2 of which I've grown before. The first is Little Gem lettuce, which make these beautiful little compact heads of romaine, really crunchy, delicious, and don't take up that much space. The classic romaine is the Parris Island Coast. You could grow most of the year, and it's quite good. But I want to try this Vivian lettuce. It looks very similar to the Parris Island, except that it has a faster day to maturity. So I'm just really curious to see how it compares. Maybe it'll beat out Parris Island as my new favorite. Now there is a very special tip when it comes to growing lettuce, especially when you want to grow lettuce in the summertime, because lettuce will not germinate if the soil temperature is over 80 degrees. So if you have tried in the past to grow lettuce only to have it fail to actually ever emerge, that's probably your reason. It's just too hot for the lettuce seed to thrive and it just won't ever come up. So I'm gonna go ahead, start these 3 packs, and I'll show you a little trick to get that lettuce growing no matter how hot it is where you live. As you saw, I put more than 1 seed in every single tray, and that's because I like to actually pluck out and propagate my lettuce seedlings. This way it saves a lot of space. And right now I'm just putting on some vermiculite. This is an asbestos-free variety, and the nice thing about this is it helps keep the seeds moist, and it lets a little bit of light through, because lettuce does actually need light to germinate. So this trick that I'm mentioning though, is that I have it placed in the shade. I have it placed in the shade that will protect it from the afternoon sun, because that is the most powerful part of the sun that heats up the soil the most. And by keeping it in the shade for the afternoon, we should stay below 80 degrees to get that germination. And by the time they germinate, the season will start cooling down and we'll have plenty of lettuce all through fall.
This crop can become bitter and even bolt if you try to grow it in warmer weather. So now that it's fall and things are cooling off, it's actually the perfect time to plant it, especially if you're like me and you really love stir fries. If that's one of your favorite meals, this is an essential ingredient. That's Tatsoi and bok choy. Tatsoi is going to grow more in a rosette pattern where you can pick off like outer leaves and it will continue to grow from the center. And it has more of a stronger mustard flavor than bok choy, which grows as a singular head that you're going to harvest all at once. But if you cut that head off about 2 inches above the level of the soil, it will actually regrow and give you a second harvest. Tatsoi can grow in temperatures as low as 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and bok choy will go down to about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you have an area in your garden that's about partial shade that you don't really know what to do with, this is a great plant for that area because it doesn't need as much sun. Now, both bok choy and tatsoi, of course, are in the brassica family, so they're going to be pretty heavy feeders. We want to make sure that we're giving our plants a good feed with some fertilizer or compost here and just mixing that lightly into the soil. And then all we're gonna do, both plants are the same, you're gonna plant these seeds about 1/4 inch deep, and we'll do 3 seeds every 6 inches and then thin that down to 1 seed every 6 inches once those seedlings are about 1 inch tall.
Spinach is a nutritional powerhouse, and it's one of those greens that is always a staple in my fall garden. My favorite variety to grow is Bloomsdale spinach. It's easy to grow and it grows really fast. You're able to harvest in as little as 28 days for some delicious baby spinach. I love to succession sow spinach every 1 to 2 weeks so that I can have a continuous harvest throughout the fall into winter. It can tolerate down to 20 degrees, and you can always extend its life by adding frost protection or planting in a cold frame. I like to direct sow spinach right into the garden, and spinach has a really shallow root system, so it is perfect for containers. This is what I like to use. It's a container that sits high off the ground, and I call it my salad box. To plant spinach, you can sow in nice, neat rows, or you can do what I prefer to do and just sprinkle the seeds around the planting area and then lightly rake them through. Once they start coming up, you're going to want to thin plants out to about every inch or so, and then you will have delicious and nutritious spinach in no time.
Here in Zone 3B, Minnesota, we're a little bit more limited on what we can grow in September, and that's because within just a few weeks, we're going to experience our first frost. So what I'm looking for are plants that are going to finish quickly because we don't have that much time, and also ones that are going to tolerate a frost. So one clear winner for me are the radishes. I love this Easter egg radish blend because look at all those beautiful colors. These are going to be ready to harvest in just 30 days, and they're very frost tolerant. So even if we have a couple chilly nights, these will do just fine. Now what I'm going to do is get this area prepped and ready for throwing our seeds down. This is a spot of some old broccoli plants that are no longer producing, so it's time to refresh them with something new. Now that our soil's all loose, I just like to smooth it out so that we have a nice space for putting our seeds down. My secret to good germination in these late summer months is to add some seed starting mix to my soil. And then our third step is to add some compost so we can replace some of those nutrients that were taken by those mature plants. Radishes are easy to sow. You just look at the back of the package. You can see we're going to do a seed every inch, but then once they've germinated, we're going to thin them to 2 inches apart. I'm actually going to do 2 rows about a couple inches apart. So I'm just going to take my fingers again and make our little shallow trenches. Let's go ahead and get them in the ground. I don't worry too much about them being exactly 1 inch apart. I just kind of roll them between my fingers and do my best that they're evenly spaced. And then when I come back after they've germinated, I'll make sure that they're thinned to every 2 inches. Now that my seeds are in, I just like to go along and do my little karate chop motion. And then I just go back and push the soil back into place and then press it back in.
Towards the end of the month, when the weather finally starts to cool off, I'll start planting my first round of carrots. I personally love a good rainbow carrot, especially the Calliope blend. These vibrant colors mean that they're rich in antioxidants, and I love to harvest them when they're about 6 inches long. Carrots are going to want all the sunlight hours you can give them, especially as they grow into the winter, so be sure to plant it in full sun. However, because our soil and the air temperature is still quite warm here, I want to make sure that I water it really well, apply a little mulch, and then I even like to apply a shade cloth over the top so that as the seedlings emerge, they're not going to get fried by the hot afternoon sun. As it gets cooler through the months, I can remove that shade cloth and I'll continue succession planting even into the winter. These mature in about 75 to 80 days, which is kind of perfect because that's right around the time we start getting those light frosts. When cold weather hits, the starches in carrots convert to sugar, which means they're going to caramelize so beautifully when roasted in the oven.
This next veggie is super popular in Europe, and for good reason. Rapini broccoli, or broccoli Raab, is really quick growing, ready to harvest in as little as 45 days, mostly because it's not your traditional broccoli. Instead of producing one main head of broccoli like a lot of traditional varieties, Rapini broccoli produces smaller little side shoots, which in my opinion are more tender, more delicious, easier to grow, and easier to clean after you harvest them. To grow this broccoli, I find that they do best when started in a seed tray, planting about 1/4 of an inch in depth. Plant them out when a nice root system has been developed and you'll have Rapini broccoli in no time. Rapini is frost tolerant, tolerating down to 25 degrees, so now is the perfect time to plant to get a harvest in before winter hits. And actually, it's another one of those veggies that is sweeter after a frost. Also, if you're able, you can always extend its season by adding frost protection.
If growing onions intimidates you, or you just don't have time left in your growing season to grow a full bulbing onion, then bunching scallions might be a great gateway for you that has less less of a hassle. I chose this Tokyo long white variety. It's a little bit more mild and has kind of like a blue-green foliage, and it can actually overwinter as a perennial in zones 4 through 9. Now this one's a little bit less cold hardy, so you're just gonna make sure you're mulching around that plant and you have some row cover on hand in case temperatures drop. For our scallions, the recommended spacing is every ½ inch and about 1/4 inch deep. Or you can do what I'm doing here to maximize your harvest, and a little bit of Meg's technique where we're multi-sowing and chaos gardening. So I've just loosened the soil here and I'm gonna pat them in. And if your soil's poor, like they'll still grow okay, but we do like to amend it a little bit with some fertilizer here before we go in and just lightly cover it up.
An important thing to note about turnips is they are a cool, loving plant. Ideal soil temp is about 60 degrees, so if you are in a warmer climate, you may want to wait a little bit longer before you plant these. But here in Minnesota, it's about right. And it tells us on the back exactly what we need to know. So we're going to do a group of 3 seeds every 4 to 6 inches and make sure that we have 18 inches between our rows. Here I have my turnip seeds. Look at how beautiful those are. And we are going to plant them right here on the edge of the bed that we just prepared. And I just like to make a shallow little trench with my fingers. And then we're just going to follow our instructions by putting 3 seeds every 4 to 6 inches. Now I just like to close up my trench like that and pat it down. We are going to eventually come back and thin them out. So once they've germinated, I'll take a peek and choose my favorite to save.
September is still pretty hot here in South Texas, which means that we can get one last crop in of bush beans. My favorite variety is the French Fillet. These are basically a haricot. They're known for being super tender, very slim, and they're perfect for quick sauté cooking. If you're planting in a new garden bed, or you've noticed in the past that you struggle to have really productive green beans, one thing that I've found really helpful is to use an inoculant. This is a bacteria that allows the roots of a legume plant to fix nitrogen from the air and make it actually usable. There's a few different ways that you can inoculate the seed. My favorite is the slurry method. This is where you'll mix a little bit of the inoculant with some water until it forms a paste, then you'll dip the seeds in until it's fully coated, and then let it dry for just a few minutes before planting. Another option is to dig the hole, plant the seed, and then sprinkle the dry inoculant on top. However, I haven't found this to be quite as successful. Whatever method you decide to go with, you'll cover that with soil, give it a good watering, and then grow it as normal.
Here in San Diego, September is one of the hottest months of the year, which makes it challenging for fall crops, including one of my favorite snacking things, which is peas, specifically shelling peas. So this year I decided to go with Wando, which is actually a heat-tolerant variety. What I'm going to do is just pull a little furrow here up against my fence, and the fence will act as a natural trellis for these peas. And the reason why I went with the heat-tolerant variety is that they'll survive this warm part of September, allowing them to grow nice and big. And by the time it cools down in the true fall, when we get into October and November, they'll actually start producing peas and they'll be happy and plump and delicious. Now there is a variety that I prefer for containers and a way to make sure that they germinate every single time. So let's head over to my container section where I'll show you that. My favorite variety for containers is called Progress number 9 because it only gets 18 inches tall, which makes it a dream for supporting. Now I do like to pre-soak my seed in a little bit of water like this when I'm going in a container, just because I have a tendency to not water them as often. All I'm going to do here is go about, 3 to 4 inches apart from each one. And remember, these only get 18 inches tall. So what I'm going to do is just take a couple stakes and just kind of put them throughout the entire bag. And the idea is that they will grab onto that if needed, and that'll help keep them upright. The nice thing about these grow bags is that they have this little channel here that lets you run irrigation tubing in, making it really easy and neat. And now I can actually water my containers without tripping all over them.
This crop is hands down one of my favorites, no matter what season it's grown in, but for us warmer climate growers, it is certainly a fall sleeper hit. It's one that I put in every soup I make, and it is a fan favorite both in the garden and in the kitchen, and that plant is the Leek. My selection is King Richard Leeks. It's actually the one that you see right behind me, and here is why for a warm climate grower at this time of year, this is a sleeper hit. It's because they are tolerant down to about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It does not even get 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which means I can plant this in late summer, early fall, right now, and I can grow it through our milder winters and get a perfectly beautiful leek in early spring. Come on, I mean, that is an incredible benefit to some of these plants in this climate. So what I like to do is I leave my leeks in the ground until I want to eat them. I call it nature's refrigerator, the garden grocery. These guys will sit here just continuing to size up. And yeah, they get slightly tougher, but if you're putting them in a soup, that's not really a big deal. And then when I want to use them, I just pull them out. So it's one of those crops, oh man, that smell. Just smells so good, so fragrant, but it's one of those crops that you don't have to harvest the second that it's ripe, which to me, that's a lot of flexibility both in the garden and in the kitchen.
Another favorite of mine for a fall garden here in Zone 3B are baby greens. I love this Mesclun mix because it has 6 different blends and it's gonna finish out in as short as 21 days up to 45 days. So that's gonna be ideal in short climates like mine. Now, baby greens are really easy to sow because they don't require thinning at all. See? No thinning required. We just make sure that our seeds are about 1/2 inch apart. And here you can see the fun mix of all the different types of lettuces that are included in this blend. And I like to sow my baby greens in bands. So I take a few fingers together and just kind of scoop a wide band. And now what I'm going to do is just broadcast them lightly throughout this space. Once I'm happy with that, I use a flat hand and press the seeds down to keep them in place, and then grab the soil that we kind of pushed aside and gently sprinkle it in. We don't want to push this time because that's going to push the seeds in. So we want to make sure that they stay in that 2-inch band. Once I'm happy with it, we just give it a nice little pat.
One of the things that we can still get started in September is kale. Kale is an extremely cold tolerant green, tolerating temperatures down to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and in my experience, in my climate, even lower than that. Actually, kale is one of the very few things that I'm able to harvest all winter long into next spring. And in fact, it's even sweeter after frost, and it's delicious in things like salads, soups, or my favorite thing to make, kale chips. 2 of my all-time favorite varieties that I'm growing year after year is Dinosaur kale and Red Russian kale. And I'm actually growing a new variety this year that I'm really excited about called Dazzling Blue. It is so stunning. It has this gorgeous blue color, and I'm so excited to see it. To get kale started, you can direct sow right into the garden, but I find that they do best when started in a seed tray. The seeds of brassicas are tiny, so they only need about 1/4 of an inch of planting depth. Once they get a nice root system going, they'll be ready to be planted out into the garden. And you'll have tender baby greens ready to harvest in as little as 30 days, which is kind of what we're looking for when we're planting this late in the year. But if you want those larger leaves, it'll be about 60 days.
So this plant is actually often considered a weed when it's found out in the wild, but that's just because it's really easy to grow. And if you're as obsessed with anything lemon flavored as I am, then you're going to love this green. It actually grows as a perennial in zones 3 through 7. So it's really cold hardy, and that's going to be sorrel. I have this common sorrel variety, and again, it's just really tangy, super citrusy. You can cook it like spinach. It can survive temperatures down to like -20 degrees Fahrenheit, and it'll stay green even after a frost. To plant sorrel, it's very low maintenance, just like me. It doesn't need any fertilizer. We're not going to be amending our soil or anything. We're just going to surface sow these about 3 seeds every 8 inches or so. And in about 35 days, you can harvest this as a baby green. But if you are growing it as a perennial, there's one other important thing you should know, which is that about every 2 to 3 years, you're gonna wanna dig it up and divide it just to revive it, get rid of all that dead foliage.
By the way, our friend Craig Poochie Johnson, the giant pumpkin, I mean, from this angle, I cannot lift it. He's probably at least 70 pounds now. Some fantastic suggestions in this video. Let us know which epic guests you enjoyed, and also check our store out. We have some new products dropping right now that I think you're really going to enjoy. And if you're wondering how to grow these epic leeks, our allium video right here should help you out. Good luck in the garden, and keep on growing.